Like that is the first and most simple thing. Is a goal is not a metric. A goal is a thing you want to achieve. Metrics never perfectly describe a goal. So if you make your goal a metric, you will always be having problems. What is the biggest enemy to your number one priority? It's your number two priority. It's not your 10th priority. It's the number two. Why have I been cut out of these meetings? And the thing she said to me is, they are listening to you, but they are not hearing you because of the way you're showing up.
Welcome to Your CMO Mentor, the podcast from the Marketing Meetup, where the brightest minds in marketing share the lessons they'd pass on if you were to come to them for advice. And today, I can't quite believe I'm saying this, but we are joined by Alex Schultz, who's the CMO of Meta. And sadly, I didn't get to speak to him, which I'm a bit gutted about. But Joe, you did. And I know you had a wonderful time, but I'd be interested to know what you took away from the session as a little sneak preview.
Yeah, it was a wild thing. So the context for this is Alex has released this new book, Click Here. And so coming up to the session, I kind of had like the publisher get in touch and say, do you want to interview Alex? I was like, okay, then let's have a chat. And in doing so, I got a copy of the book. And I think the greatest compliment that I can pass on to Alex and also in this interview is that having read the book, it's meaningfully changed how we run the Marketing Meetup as a business. So to give a specific example, before the book, we didn't have a North Star that was sort of dictated and verbalized to everyone in the business. Now we do. And honestly, it's been transformative in how we make decisions, how we speak to each other, how we've set our goals, how we've set our ambitions. And all of a sudden, it's been like this huge unlock moment for TMM as a whole. And that's down to this interview, which is phenomenal. So like I felt a little bit overwhelmed by the opportunity, but then also for Alex to then come in and have the chat with us and share what he knew. It was pretty phenomenal. So a really, really interesting session. You can hear from Alex I can't help but do this, but I even listen to stuff like the tone of his voice. And I'm like, I kind of know where you are, why you are where you are. And it was quite lovely. I'd encourage folks to listen out for one question in particular, because we got a little bit reflective as well about how the role of being CMO of Meta sits with Alex. And it was a moment where he got quite reflective and I've really sort of lent in to his answer at that point. So it's about halfway through. I definitely encourage folks to listen out for that question. So it was a bit of a wild session, but one that I really, really enjoyed.
And now, Joe, it's the bit where we do a sponsor read. Boom, bing, bing. The fact that we're able to do this is because we've had a little bit of financial support from a partner, and they're called Censuswide. But I actually don't know anything about them because I've not met Censuswide. This has all been a relationship that's come together last minute through you. So I'd love you to tell me just a little bit more, if you can, about why we're excited, and why we're a good fit.
Of course. Well, so the first thing is I'm going to shout out Megan, who's been wonderful at Censuswide, and she is the one who's created this. I want to say thank you to Megan, because like we speak about brands, but actually at TMM, we always like to acknowledge the human beings behind these brands as well. Censuswide is a company that delivers market research for the purposes of PR and marketing campaigns, which enables marketers to make decisions and do them well. But the reason why they're getting in touch with us right now and on this podcast is that they're releasing a brand new report called the CMO report. And so it's perfect for this theme of Your CMO Mentor, because I think first off, we're going to be speaking to CMOs. But secondly, we're going to be hearing a bunch of reflections from CMOs about how to do marketing well. And the lovely thing about the report is that Censuswide have gone out to bunches and bunches of CMOs and said, what's your world like right now? What are you thinking about? What are your challenges? And how can we get continued success? And so Censuswide have done the hard work. They've produced this report, having completed a bunch of interviews with CMOs everywhere. And now they're giving this out to CMOs around the world so that they know how they can act and respond in the market environment we operate.
And we're going to put the link in the show notes description, something like that.
This is a podcast, my friend, so we should probably do that thing.
We'll do that. Have a look. Tap on your phone, unless you're driving, and have a look at that link, and then download it and have a little read. Absolutely. Make your brain a bit bigger.
With all that said, let's head into the podcast, my friend. So the quickfire questions are really all about letting the audience know about your character and just finding out a little bit more about you in a marketing context, which, having read the book, I think will come across brilliantly. So the first question is, and this is something we ask everyone that comes on, is if you were starting out in marketing today, where would you choose to focus and what skills would you be looking to cultivate first?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Well, first and foremost, it would depend what company I worked at. Mm-hmm. Because if I did travel versus I did online retail, I'd probably have a different channel mix.
Yeah.
I think for me, I would focus on data, targeting, optimization, like those elements. How do I get really creative with those? Mm-hmm. And that would then depend on the channel as to which form of data, targeting, and optimization I was optimizing for.
Love that. And I think we'll probably end up getting into quite a lot of that in this chat as well. So I'll be picking up on that as we go. So question two of 4 in the quick fire round is what character trait do you admire in other marketers?
I think like probably the number one thing is like positivity and ability to like roll with the punches. So like actually just things change all the time in marketing. And there are some people who catastrophize that, you know, whatever, mobile is going to destroy marketing. The internet's going to destroy marketing. AI is going to destroy marketing. And that's been true if you go back and read the old books, like from Ogilvy to Rossa Reeves to Claude C. Hopkins, you know, to Plato. Like, you know, it's always that the new thing's going to destroy the old thing. And so people who've kind of got the like, yeah, this is really cool and I want to try this one out too. I really appreciate that.
I love that. I've got a perfect example of someone to follow as well for folks to listen in. So Ellie Norman used to be the CCO of Man United. And if there's one person who embodies positivity in their character, then I would encourage folks to follow Ellie because she's inspired me so much over the past few years, and I love that. So I've seen it in other people, and I admire it because I'm naturally a catastrophizer as well, and so I'm trying to cultivate that character trait as well. So I love that. Okay, question number 3, and I don't usually ping pong all over the place, but this is quick fire, so this is where we're starting. So who would be your dream mentor and why?
Ooh. Well, for what it's worth, I think I got them, so I'm a very lucky man. David Droga. He, you know, look, I'm really good at direct response marketing.
Yeah.
But that means there's a lot of other stuff I'm not really good at. Like, honestly, you know, sort of creative in the way that people talk about it traditionally in the industry, creative with respect to pixels and ideas to do with, you know, pictures and video and storytelling. That's not my superpower. My superpower is being creative with data and product and all of these things. And so when I became CMO, Antonio Lucio, my predecessor, he said to me, you need to meet regularly with, he said, 2 guys, Matthew Freud and David Droga, and both of them made time for me. And they were both incredible mentors. Mm-hmm. David in particular, like, is one of the best creatives on earth. You know, Matthew's incredible, but I don't run comms.
Yeah.
So, you know, I learned a lot from him, but like David for mentoring for my marketing stuff, oh my God, it was life-changing. And yeah, I learned a ton from him.
Love that so much. What fabulous access as well. Like, I mean, like that's proper like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I mean, if I got a job like this,
Absolutely.
They're lovely people. They're not meeting with me because of who I am. They're meeting with the job I got.
And that's all good. I mean, it's good to acknowledge reality as well. And so last question, what is one piece of marketing or life advice that you hold dear?
Well, this is literally in the book, but it's actually like pretty fundamental to how I run my life, which is incrementality is everything.
Yeah.
It matters for me. It matters that if I show up and do something,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter what I do. You're off in Cambridgeshire, up in Ely, like, I love Cambridge. I actually do a ton of stuff philanthropically with Cambridge.
Right.
And the stuff I care about is that I was able to go to Cambridge because I got a bursary. It was a little bit harder on the family financially, and then I paid for it more with a bunch of online marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm helping people go to Cambridge, and the money I'm giving is for people who couldn't get to Cambridge otherwise. When I look at my online marketing, I turn it off, I turn it on again. I do all of this testing to make sure like the impact is actually incremental and it's not just some post-click thing. Like everything for me in how I live my life is like the impact I needed to have, whatever walk of life it's in, is incremental. It's not just that I showed up and took a seat on a rocket ship or I showed up and collected the paycheck. I want to have an impact because we're only on Earth for a short period of time. Like, do something that matters.
Yeah, that's gorgeous, mate. I love it. Very, very good. Thank you. And you referenced the story about paying for university through your digital marketing activity. That's referenced in the book. And I know that an interview that you did with, I think it's Harry Stebbs at 20VC, also went into that early on. So I'm not going to dive into that here because it's a wonderful story, but it's also one that's been told. And I want to make sure that we focus on the book today. So thank you for speaking through those quickfire questions and letting us get to know you just a little bit more to start off with. So the second section today is all about sort of taking a deeper dive into your specialty areas and the stuff that you covered in the book. And I wanted to start off with in the introduction, because you mentioned in the introduction that there's no shortage of books that sort of speak to brand marketing and marketing in general, but there's far fewer speaking about digital marketing specifically. Now, having had the experience of reading the book, then I see the direction that you took, and it's definitely in depth in digital marketing, which is where it needed to be. But I was curious whether this was hard for you to do. Was it hard for you to draw the line between sort of marketing in its totality and then write a book about digital marketing? Because like often they're presented as one and the same, even if the tactics are quite different.
Well, I think probably what you've seen in the book is there's a few times when I've verged into talking about marketing more broadly. Like, for example, working with finance, part of what I was saying is like, hey, measure digital direct response well, and then you can close Fifth Avenue and have Lewis Hamilton do donuts, which was probably the highlight of my CMO career. That and setting Zuck on fire. I can't decide which one was the actual highlight.
Everyone wants to do that to their boss.Maybe not.
No, right? It's crazy. I was like, I hope this goes well, because otherwise I don't have a career anymore. So it was actually pretty easy. There were a few places where I was able to say, hey, you got to think about broader marketing, but I restricted myself to the channels because look, I mean, go buy Ogilvy on advertising if you want to learn about out of home. Like, he stuck a car to a billboard. That's still to sell super glue. That's still a very good bit of coaching today. So I didn't think I had anything particularly unique to add there. So I just drew a line.
I think it's important, and like I reflected, on the book and it as part of my marketing training. So I'm a fan of like Britson and folks like that in the industry, and I actually found, and I reflected, and again, I'm not trying to blow smoke here, but like the thing that was important to me was like combining these sources of knowledge. So Ritson sort of speaks on this very strategic sort of global view of marketing, but actually I spend a lot of my headspace in that space as well. So that was one of the things I found refreshing about the book, was that it was a deep dive into digital marketing, and unashamedly so, because I actually learned a bunch from that, which I think the community can as well at the marketing meetup. So like,
that's awesome.
As I say, it did its job.
Good. Does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah, exactly.
Which no one in America gets, by the way, when you say that.
No. Idioms are, we had a talk the other day about translation, and idioms are hard, so best avoided. So, so you've already mentioned it about incrementality, but I did want to spend a little bit of time here because in the book you introduce two key philosophies and principles that sort of sit at the core of everything that you sort of go about your world using. And honestly, incrementality isn't something which has found its way into my world an awful lot from the people that I speak to. the other principle I'm not going to focus on here, but so you've already explained it a bit. And so like, I'm not going to ask you to repeat your words, but for the listeners who may not have explored incrementality, can you speak to what it is and why it sits at the heart of your philosophy on digital marketing? Because I think specifically it has big implications for people how might use their marketing budget tomorrow. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ogilvy has a useful idiot in some of his writing, and to some extent, I do too. It's like if you just track after the click what happens and say that's what the marketing drove, it's not true. Like it's actually not true. And I think different channels. I mean, the sort of push on it is search is kind of a goal hanger channel. By the time you get to the bottom of the funnel, you often search for the thing you want to buy. And so I don't think it's surprising that search engines, even though they have a lot of logged in visitors, don't let you do user level A/B testing because like they're right at the bottom of the funnel and you've had all of this stuff at the top of the funnel driving awareness and thought before action. With social media, we play over the bottom of the funnel, but we also play further up the funnel because there's more like a search creative is a piece of text with a keyword inserted. A social media creative can be like a actually quite long video with really interesting stuff in it. So it drives awareness, consideration, as well as action. And so social media, therefore, all pushes towards measuring incrementality and doing holdouts and lift studies. And from my perspective, if you really want to understand what all the channels do, billboards, you'll put some up in London, you won't put them up in Birmingham, and you'll look at what happens to your sales in those two cities. You want to do the same thing online, the exact same thing online, and get to the incremental lift that happens because of you do your online marketing. The best example of this in the book, which actually I haven't talked about on any podcast or interview, but I think is brilliant, is by Steve Tadelis, the professor at Berkeley. He became the chief economist at eBay and the chief economist at Amazon, interestingly. And he's a brilliant man. I absolutely love him. Lots of fun and brilliant. And he went at eBay and looked at eBay's purchase of the keyword eBay. And he analyzed it and he got eBay to turn it off. And he was able to prove that there was very little to no incrementality in the conversions they were getting. People who searched for the word eBay would have used eBay otherwise. If you are an online marketer and you're not looking at incrementality measurement, you're paying for conversions you would have got otherwise. And we have everything from a Berkeley professor saying it to the CMO of Meta. It's really true. And so I think people should focus on lift studies. And how they do it? Well, if it's social media, you can buy a lift study. You can get them off us, but you can get them off of most social media sell those. If it's Google or Bing or one of these search engines, you have to do on-off tests, or you have to do it in England, but not Wales. So you can but even there, you have the complexity of trying to match the markets so that the absolute position and trajectory are the same of the thing you're doing. It's very hard. But whatever you do, you need to get into that detail of did things go up because I did the marketing? And it's a standard principle for years and years and years, going back to Wanamaker and his famous quote, you need to measure incrementality.
Yeah, I don't know which half. It's huge. It's one of the quotes in the book. So I've written it down. I've written down several quotes in the book just to give context for the questions. But it's a legit thing because in the book you say great measurement gives you the space to achieve incredible things. It does this because results garner respect, trust, and autonomy from your peers and management. And that's a big deal. I think that's something a lot of marketers struggle with.
Absolutely.
It's the legitimacy of marketing to a certain extent, but being able to prove it black and white like this is huge. I'm curious how this translates into your world, because it feels like this is something that you set up, you've done regularly over the course of your career. Even at this stage, how much of your role is about legitimizing marketing within the company, and which eventually enable you to place bets on on Lewis Hamilton doing donuts
and setting Mark on fire?
Crucially.
I can't believe I did that. Yesterday, for when we're recording this. Yesterday, I was meeting with our new board members.
Right.
And in early September, I have another meeting with our new board members, or our entire board, to talk about brand.
Right.
And in those, I'm a little scared about these meetings. Like, I'm going in, and the problem with marketing. So look, I actually have a real and a fake master's in semiconductor physics. And I happen to sit over infrastructure analytics as well as sitting over marketing. I run data science and data engineering. And when I sit with the infrastructure teams, I have opinions about our semiconductor plans. I have opinions about the thermodynamics of our data centers and the cooling systems you have to put in place for inference and training data centers around AI, because they generate much more heat because of the nature of the GPUs and the processing. That surprises people. Normally, if you're sitting in infra and you go in for a review with an exec, they don't know much about semiconductors and physics. Whereas with marketing, you go in for a review and everyone thinks they can do marketing. And what's really crazy is the stuff people think is easy about marketing, the clever creative idea, is the hard bit. The stuff they think is hard, counting and measuring stuff, is actually like far easier than having that unique, brilliant, creative campaign idea that you lever everything off of. And for me, it's a huge part of my job to legitimize and keep legitimizing marketing. And the way we do it is through this measurement and incrementality testing. You know, our CFO, one of the things she pushes the most back on me on is events. Like, events are pretty splashy. They're a tiny part of my budget, but they're splashy. And so we're big at Cannes, we're big at Davos, all of these things. And the investors see them and they ask investor relations questions like, oh, you're doing this, that, and the other. So I'm having to literally do synthetic tests to show uplift, to show the amount of money we've saved sales by the meetings we've done, all of these things. But when I've done that right, and I've got measurement of incrementality testing for the online marketing, offline, regional testing, billboards, out of home, TV, radio, regionally tested with matched markets. And I can prove to the board, the CEO, and the CFO that we don't just drive incremental results, we drive incremental results that are truly meaningful to the top line of the business. That is what gets me the freedom to be able to do some of the other things that are much harder to do. So I consider it still 15%, 20% of my job is just legitimizing the work we do in marketing with my peers and superiors.
That is, it's fantastic to hear about, because you are you've got your job, and it's quite nice to know that this is still part of your job. Because I think whether you're working on a industrial estate on the outside of Newmarket, or sitting in North London, with the CMO of Meta, like there's a commonality there, and to sort of hear not only.
I think things are more similar than they are different.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We see this all the time, honestly, all the time. TMM is of the size now where we're quite representative of the market. And the problems that we speak to, it really doesn't matter in terms of industry size or whatever. It's very people problems, and it's communication. And that's the second part of it, which feels important, which is like, you've got the measurements, you've done the hard work to build the dashboards, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's that communication style. There's that sort of like that conversation that goes on with someone, which sort of says, okay, we've got the data and this is what it shows, and therefore we can do this. And that feels hard but important. And like, if you miss out one or the other, then you don't get to do Lewis Hamilton or the fire.
Best data in the world, and you can't explain it. I had some of the best coaching I had was my HR VP years ago, this lady Annette Revis, who now I serve on a board with. She's awesome.
Amazing.
I was going into these meetings with senior leaders at Meta, and I'm not going to say who, about SEO.
Yeah.
And I built my entire career on SEO. Like, I did paper airplane website, I did a cocktail website, I did a butterfly tattoo website. Like, SEO is what I'm good at. And the thing that got me out of advertiser growth into users as well in Meta was SEO. So I'm like, SEO I'm good at. And I was going into these meetings with former Google executives, and I would say Google execs typically don't know how to do SEO because Google doesn't have to do SEO to rank in Google. So you're welcome to then project that on me for social media. That's fine.
Fine. I've got my snippet.
Yeah. But like, I'd go into these Google execs and I would tell them what they needed to do on SEO to do well. And then I got cut out of all the meetings. And so I go to Annette and I'm like, why have I been cut out of these meetings? And the thing she said to me is, they are listening to you, but they are not hearing you because of the way you're showing up. Because you're going into those meetings and you're like talking to these senior executives, way more senior than I was.
Yeah.
And you're being so pushy that they're getting into amygdala hijack and they don't want to hear from you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was mind-blowing. The idea that senior people to me would be upset about what a junior person is saying to them, so upset they'd stop inviting the person, seemed insane. And it really changed my entire perspective of how I show up to senior leadership, which for me now, fine, is the CFO, the CEO, the board. It's the next level up. But when I turn up to those meetings now, I think really hard about what do they need to hear to understand me, to actually hear me, rather than just listen to me and take away feelings rather than understand.
It's huge. And really it speaks to the spirit of marketing, right? Which is it's all about the customer. And so, it's, it's internal marketing as much as it is external marketing, but it's both, and without one, you don't get the other. So.
I literally said that in a meeting the other day where my team was presenting to the chief revenue officer and they brought me the presentation first. And I was like, are we marketers? Can we please communicate this better, gang?
It's important, but it's easy to lose, and I think it's easy to lose because I think if you lose sight of that idea that your executive could be scared, and scared by a lack of knowledge or not appearing impressive or not having their ego fed or whatever, it's easy to go into that defensive mode. So I really appreciate that.
Well, and also be kind to your executive, because if you're sitting in a job like me, you've probably context switched 10 times in the last 2 hours in terms of the topics.
Yeah.
And so your mind is just...
Yeah.
And so if you get presented a deck or a given an update or have to read a paper that's really complicated and you've context switched all those times over the day already, your effectiveness has dropped. And so you need to actually think about your audience. In this case, it's a small audience. It's just the exec. But you need to think about your audience in a way that, like, you have empathy for what they're going through in their day, or you won't be effective in convincing them of the thing you want them to know.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that point, and I don't want to point to an example of me because I don't really like speaking about myself in that way. But like before we went live today, just 5 minutes at the beginning where it was like, here's the context for this conversation, not assuming you knew who I was, etc., etc. It's kind of little things like that. Not that. This was manipulative anyway, but I remember Jeremy Connell-Waite, who's very senior at IBM, speaks about sort of using even small talk quite tactically sometimes to get the message in, about the meeting in the small talk, and then you go into the presentation and you've already said what you want to say, which is
no. One of my favorite things recently is these glasses, we're selling these glasses and they're going really well, right? The AI glasses, and then we're doing more than we can make, right. And that's been fantastic. We're over the moon. It's amazing. At the same time, we're about to catch up on supply, which we did last year as well in the fall or autumn, and we're about to do that here. And the autumn's not the best time to sell sunglasses. It's not. And so that's the way I deliver that message when people are asking me, what are we going to do now we have the supply? I'm like, well, the autumn's not the best time to sell sunglasses. And then everyone chuckles and moves on. Yeah. But the point lands.
Yeah.
And so it is, I agree with you. It's about how you communicate it. And it doesn't have to be, it's not manipulative. It's actually being like, okay, well, let's land the point in the way and the place where it lands.
That's it. Absolutely. Bang on. You spoke about context switching in that last answer. So let me context switch now into a different space in the conversation, because the way that you lay out the book is that you start with the basics, and there are several basics in there. So North Star, marketing funnel, conversion, targeting, channels, and creative. I think everyone reading the book will take a different thing from the book. But for me, as a result, I actually went back and worked on my own company's North Star. And actually, my entire team is out at the moment. They're all having holidays and stuff like that. So ChatGPT was my mate over these past couple of days. And I've actually got a dashboard that is now built, and I'm feeling great about it. And that's your fault. So thank you.
You talk to a guy who does analytics for a living.
Yeah, it's good. My team will thank you later as well. So as this feels quite foundational to everything else, and I've had this personal experience, I just wanted to ask you about developing a North Star and what you think separates a good one from a bad one. And there may be a little bit of a definition required up front here for people who haven't heard the terminology before.
North Star is the goal. It's very important to separate the goal from the metric. So North Star is the goal. It's the thing you want to achieve. For us, it was connect the world online through Facebook. So what separates a good one from a bad one is an interesting and different question about this. And I think it's a great question. Firstly, it's not a metric. Like that is the first and most simple thing is a goal is not a metric. A goal is a thing you want to achieve. Metrics never perfectly describe a goal. So if you make your goal a metric, you will always be having problems. That's one. The other things it needs to do is it needs to actually cause you to make decisions and make trade-offs. You can't have a North Star that is everything to everyone. So connect the world online through Facebook explicitly isn't make the most money possible, which therefore meant when we met with the ads team and we were doing growth, there was a trade-off. Explicitly, it isn't get the most posts uploaded daily. It isn't get the most time spent daily. There's a load of things it isn't. And I think any North Star that is good will have a load of things it isn't. Because otherwise it's not going to help you make a decision. Those are probably, I think, like actually, and the third thing is it should line up with the mission of your company. So whatever your company is trying to do, for us, it really was connect the world online. Now it's build the future of human connection and the technologies that make it possible, which talks to getting everyone to use a pair of these, and use the most cutting edge technology we have within social media, not just use social media, but use AI glasses, go into fully immersive environments. So again, it really clarifies what you're doing and what you're not doing because it's aligned with the mission of the company, which for us has evolved. That's I actually think those three is pretty simple. Don't be a metric. Make sure it actually causes you to make trade-offs and isn't everything to everyone. So it has to be clear, it has to be precise, and then needs to align with the mission of the company. If it does those three things, you're going to be in a really good position.
I agree. It works well. It's it probably comes a bit further down the line, but it's analogous to sort of Michael Porter sort of strategy is about saying no as much as it's about saying yes.
What is the biggest enemy to your number one priority? It's your number two priority. It's not your 10th priority. It's the number two.
Yeah. And honestly, that's such a great quote because we live that sometimes. We live that sometimes. That in my business, and I think my co-founder will probably be chuckling at that as well because we recognise that in each other.
100%.
Well. It's super easy.
It's really hard because usually your number two, like when you make a list of priority of goals, right? And you pick what your top goal is, and you need to focus. The number two goal is still probably pretty good. And not only is it pretty good, there'll be times when you look at it and go, oh man, that was a better goal. But if you keep flip-flopping between a couple of goals, you're never going to be like, oh, my 10th goal is better than my first goal. But the second one might be. And if you keep flip-flopping between those, you are going to end up not making progress and your company will fail. Yeah.
Well, you referenced there that the North Star has changed in different moments. I don't want to say it's probably not time bound. You're probably not reviewing your North Star every 12 months, but do you have any recommendations for how often people do review their North Star, given that it is almost that relentless focus on one thing, but that one thing may change, that thing might alter shape, et cetera, and it feels like there's a delicate balance between being relentless in your pursuit of the North Star, but also the other side of it is sort of saying, okay, this doesn't work for us anymore and we need to change this. Have you any experience in how that works?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say two things on this one. One is, I think when you update your mission, you update your North Star. And so I like really, if you're at the point where, hey, the mission of the company has changed, so ours has broadened.
Yeah,
I would personally say that the mission we have today actually really does speak to what we were doing in 2004 to 2010 or whatever. The future of human connection back then was social media. Yeah. At this point, you've got a world where over 4 billion people monthly are using our products outside of China. Yeah. That's 2/3 of the world. There's a lot of people who are below the age of 13 who aren't ever going to use it. So like we're pretty close to having achieved our previous mission. So we have broadened it to building the future of human connection and the technologies that enable it. And that future of human connection point is AI, is immersive, it's augmented, it's all of those things. So it was a major update for us when we rebranded the company and we really reset the company and we said, okay, we're heading towards new technologies, not just social media as it exists today, but we're going to broaden it. So it was really deliberate, and that, I think, is when our North Star essentially updated for the company, which is to get people on the most advanced technologies, not just to get them on our technologies. So you should be really deliberate about that. That would be the first thing I'd say. It's like it's mission level update for you to update your North Star goal. The North Star goal flows from mission. The second thing is there will come times when to achieve your North Star and to achieve your mission, you have to change the strategy and tactics you're doing. Mm-hmm. An example for us as a company was when our stock price dropped 3/4, which was a very big life event. It was a very big life event. I gave a whole speech internally that then leaked to the Wall Street Journal. Anyway, it was a whole thing. Yeah. That moment, we needed to have new strategy and tactics. So our North Star was still connect the world, right? But at that stage, we needed to make the business viable. Mm-hmm. And so we refocused and revenue became a top priority goal or a top priority goal for the company. It actually sort of, for a period, it superseded our normal North Star goal. Mm-hmm. And really, it was actually profitability that was the thing that superseded. And so we changed our list of tactics we were doing in order to achieve our North Star goal, because there was a period when something became more important. So you have to differentiate from, has the mission of the company fundamentally updated, in which case new North Star, or are we in a period where there's something really important but it's transitory for the company, in which case we'll update our strategy and tactics and we'll say, this is the right goal for the time being. Our North Star remains our North Star, but we have to have a different priority right now because of the way the world is.
Nice. Love it. Thank you for speaking through that. That's endlessly helpful. And I think tactically, folks can take an awful lot from that. This is a complete diversion of a question, and certainly not one that I've had approved before. So it may never even make the edit. We've got Lainey here on the chat with us, and Lainey may be wanting to punch me at the moment. But it strikes me that when you mention stuff like 2/3 of the world population, with the exception of China, using your platforms and stuff like you give a speech internally and it leaks to the Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. On a very human level, like how does your role sit with you? Because it feels big, it feels like a really, really big job. And do you feel watched, or do you feel... How do you respond to that kind of responsibility? Because it feels like a big thing, and I don't know whether that's something that just sort of comes quite natural to you or what.
Well, I think there's a few things. I don't even know. The top one is, you got to remember I grew into this.
Right.
So my experience of how this has changed, I was a junior, I was one level above hourly worker when I joined the company 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've just been in this weird place where the industry has done this, the company has done this, and then I've done this as well.
Right.
So it is sometimes hard to get the perspective because I've grown into the role like that. So that'd be the first thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing is, it's a privilege. I have these days when I get really upset, and certainly, I was once the New York Times once published an article that said I was manipulating newsfeed. And I was so irritated, if I'm honest, because we inserted an ad, and the ad said from Facebook. It was very clear that it was an ad and it was a product placement that we put in newsfeed. And it said, it had some positive stories about us. Mm-hmm. That's what ads do. Mm-hmm. And I will say, after we complained about it, they actually took that out of the article. And a bunch of other journalists who wrote about it, even deleted their tweets or tweeted that, hey, come on.
Right.
And moments like that, I get very grumpy and down, and I'm like, well, this feels unfair, whatever. And I always have to remind myself, it's a real privilege to have this job.
Mm-hmm.
I have it for this time period. At some point, I won't have it anymore. And that will probably be sad. And that's life. And these things happen. But I have a very special job and I am very lucky to have it. And I need to remember that privilege.
Mm.
And with that privilege and with that great job, yeah, you get extra scrutiny and you have to go through some stuff that you would rather not go through. And some of it is very well-meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had critiques that I'm like, one journalist, a guy called Mike Isaacs from New York Times, I thanked him for an article where he definitely didn't make my life easier, but he reported it faithfully and true. And I'm like, you know what? Thanks.
Mm.
In other situations, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Yeah. Okay, I've got a really good job. It's a really big job. And the world has a right to hold people like me to account. So I will deal with this.
Nice. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for being open to speak about that. And like, I really appreciate it. On a very human level, the stuff that you do matters. And being able to hear that sort of stuff is really encouraging for anyone, at any stage of their career. So I really appreciate that. And I hope that doesn't make you too cross. I would ask.
I think it's fine. Lenny might be like, oh my God, you mentioned journalists. No.
We'll see. But thank you. Your answer there spoke to an idea of perspective as well to me. There's something there which is, about perspective. And I'm now going to bring this back into regular scheduled events to be able to sort of speak about this. But one of the quotes from the book is, when new technologies and channels emerge, they're treated as distinct. As they mature, they get subsumed, becoming part of the existing bigger picture. By thinking through and understanding how common approaches and frameworks work, we can adapt them as they come along and play a larger role in our everyday work. Now, I read that, and I know that there's a section specifically on AI in the book, but I read that and I couldn't help but think about AI. Do you think that AI is another tool that is going to be absorbed into existing frameworks, or does it require entirely new thinking about how we do our jobs as marketers?
I'd argue the answer for everything is both.
Mm-hmm.
So the simple answer is both.
Yeah.
AI has a lot more in how, so it depends how you use AI. It depends by channel.
Yeah.
If you look at the automated ad campaigns,
mm-hmm.
that's AI.
Yeah.
Honestly, that basically requires you to think about data in new ways, to be creative about data, to be thoughtful about your pipelines, how you share data, how you tag data, how you make sure that the right things are being fed into the algorithm. It requires you to think about how you bust the algorithm out of local minima. All of this sounds an awful lot like the last 20 years of online marketing, right? It's just more advanced ranking and optimization. So that one's like pretty much principles are actually very constant, new technology. When you look at what it does to creative, right? Okay, we're going to have much more automation for creating the 47 banner ad variants that we need, or the multiple different cut downs for YouTube Shorts or TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever. Yeah. Well, you know what? That sounds an awful lot like what happened with word processing. That happened with the printing press when you stopped writing by hand. That's, again, just like it's another tool that makes creating more efficient. So again, I think there's a lot of principles and constant with that. When you look at the chatbots, right, which I think are probably the most disruptive of all of it. Mm-hmm. There's two ways, I think, to look at the chatbots. One is as a search replacement. Mm-hmm. So that would be really interesting. But in which case, we're already moving towards category search instead of keyword search. Yeah. So it looks very similar. And you're going to want to do AI engine optimization rather than search engine optimization. Mm-hmm. But guess what? They're crawling the web. And so there's an awful lot of similarity there as well. Yeah. And then when it comes to chatting with a chatbot, it's very like direct mail. There's more in common, I think, with AI chatbots and direct mail postcards of the 1980s than we would care to accept. All that's happening is the back and forth is quicker. Yeah. So an awful lot of these, I actually think there are principles that we can apply from history and see what happens. Yeah. If we get to AI superintelligence, then things get very weird. So if we truly get all the way to superintelligence, I am not going to say that looks like a postcard from the 1980s. But until we get there, probably
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's limits to the human experience, right? And so, there is a physicality to some of the things we read. Even in a glasses form, if you
Yep.
read it, you're still using your eyes and you're still, etc. So, who knows what comes? It's always very hard to future gaze, and so I'm glad you didn't do that, but I am grateful for your reflections on today, which is great. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
As we come to the end of our time together, then one of the things that we like to do is provide a scenario for you. And the important thing to note here is that we're not asking you for free consultancy. We're not asking you for a tactical sort of implementation of something. But one of the things we're interested in is sort of like thinking about how your brain processes the problem that the person from the community has thought about. It's not too scary, don't worry. In fact, it's applying a lot of theories in the book. So I think you've already written your answer in lots of ways. But this scenario comes from the community, and therefore we like to help if we can. So the person from the community says, I've just taken on a role as the head of marketing in a 50-ish person B2B company, having previously been a marketing manager in another similar size company before. My CEO is generally supportive of marketing, but is making a lot of noises about needing results. And they put read revenue short term.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on board with this, but also mindful that a lot of our initiatives will require some element of long-term investment as well. Tracking is a bit all over the place, and I don't have the trust in the data currently to know what is working and what isn't. So what would be your priorities as you start to think through this problem?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'd say is so this sounds an awful lot like when I came into Facebook. There were
Right.
250 odd employees, so not 50, but only 5 times as many.
Mm-hmm.
And tracking was all over the place. and they had a not invented here mentality, so like everything was homegrown.
Right.
So the first thing I did personally was I went in and fixed tracking.
Right.
In parallel to that, so that was like my first thing is I signed contracts with, back then it was Mediaplex, and I got the tracking to a place where I believed in it. The second thing that I did was I went in and I did the quick wins. So everything I prioritized was just quick wins. I didn't for the first 6 months to a year, I didn't focus on long term. What I was doing with the long term stuff was I was noting down. I work off of a notebook.
Nice.
All the legal stickers are from my time in DC at our antitrust trial. Spent 2 months in DC. It was a life experience. Great lawyers. They were a lot of fun. So I wrote down in my things to do list, like, hey, on-site linking, really important for growth, like all of these different things. But I kind of pushed those projects out. I thought about them, I prepared for them, but they were going to take longer because they required changing product, they required stuff.
Yeah.
And so I fixed the tracking and I did the quick wins.
Nice.
That built momentum for me with the team that enabled me to then say, hey guys, like, have you considered changing the words on that link to be more like active? Have you considered adding another link in this location? And so it's that building of momentum I think you have to focus on. I've seen this actually lots of times. Like when I've done a bunch of advising, I don't anymore. My job's too busy now. But I was an advisor at Airbnb for 6 years. And again, when I came in, it was the basics first and then building up. On the board of directors, I'm on this cruise line. Like we changed over what we were doing in marketing drastically. And the first thing we did was a simple basics on budget allocation as a travel company in 2022, 2023. The allocation would look differently today, but like at that stage, the allocation was very clear. And I just said, hey, do the basics on the allocation. So I've seen this lots of times, and I think, fix the tracking, do the basics that get you short-term wins, use that to build momentum, and from the momentum, do the longer-term stuff.
Love that. Really solid. Thank you very much. And I love that came from real life experience as well as just processing and speaking about the theory. So again, thank you for speaking through that. Alex, that's it. You've nailed it. Good job. And thank you for speaking through everything today. As I've mentioned throughout the interview, I've taken an awful lot from the book. So
Okay, thank you very much.
for penning it. It's been a good read. I'm actually one of those ones where I'm going to go back through, and you do the first read and then you go back as a reference guide.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And so
And look, I'm giving all the money away from the book. Like, I'm not going to make a penny from this book, and because I want it to exist as a reference guide to help people, and I'm kind of emphasizing that by not trying to make money from it.
That's wicked. Well, I think you mentioned that in the introduction, but I might have skimmed over it, and so like I appreciate that as well as an effort. So thank you for spending the time with me today.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.